Welcome to Faith Fondue, a podcast featuring author and speaker Haley DeMaria and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue will feature a melting pot of topics, ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. It's the week of July 11th. We are almost halfway through the month of July, which is amazing. And it's also the 15th week in Ordinary Time. Hi, Ann.
Hi, Haley. I'm excited to talk to you today about America's favorite camp counselor, Lake Tahoe, place that has a lot of memories. And for me, the Wimbledon championship, religious symbols, and maybe one that has meaning for you, and another podcaster, Father Mike Schmidt. So tell me, Haley, tell me about your week.
Yeah.
We're more than halfway done with the year.
So
Wow.
Technically the end of June is halfway through the year. I feel like people view the 4th of July as the midpoint to summer, even though it's not really. I
Yes.
feel like if summer begins Memorial Day, ends Labor Day, July 4th isn't the middle, but I think people kind of mark that as the
agree.
middle. But yeah, we are more than halfway through the year. Almost halfway through July, which is pretty much almost halfway through summer. It's, some days go quicker than others.
That's summer.
Yeah, but we traveled this past weekend. My younger son, Edward, our former podcast producer, I'm actually back in his office where I used to tape our podcast when he was producing it and putting it together for us. Thankfully, Ann and I have done some research and learned how to do it ourselves because he is gone this summer for 2 months. He is a camp counselor just south of Asheville in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and he had about 24 hours off between sessions. So we went down to visit him and my nephew, who's also a camp counselor. My sister and brother-in-law were there, and we had such a great time. I didn't go to camp growing up. I never thought I would send my kids to sleepaway camp. We sent Edward because his brother was playing baseball all summer. He loves this camp. He loves it with every fiber of his being. And it is no different this year. And there is a physical change in him that is actually not physical. It's independence, it's confidence, it's the way he carries himself, but you can physically see it when he's at this camp. And I've seen it. I saw it when I picked him up from the years that he has been a camper. And I saw it this past weekend. It's, as I told my husband, because Edward will be a senior in high school this fall. So, most likely the fall of 2022, he'll be off to college. I felt like he's taken one step further away from us, which of course, Jamie didn't want to hear, but just that sense of independence, confidence, it's really, as a parent, a neat thing to see. And certainly camp has expedited that. So we had a great time. He was thrilled for the break. He was nice. It was nice for him to get away, he said, from campers who don't say please or thank you. But he was really excited to go back too.
Shocking.
Yeah, it gives him a good perspective of the responsibility of taking care of children. And, the camp does such a good job of training them in that way and helping them understand what it means to be a camp counselor. And, I said to him, before I dropped him off, and then again this past weekend, just remember how much you loved your camp counselors. I said, that's you now. You are now providing that experience for your campers. And he said, Mom, I think about that every day. Yeah, and I thought, okay, wow, that's great. So anyway, we had a great, the mountains of North Carolina are beautiful. The Blue Ridge Mountains are beautiful, very different, certainly, than the way I grew up in Arizona. Very different than the Chesapeake Bay where I am living now. And we just had a great time. It was a nice little break.
That's great. Now, so Edward went to this camp for how many years before he became a camp counselor?
He went for 3 years. And then he took a year off to play in nationals for water polo. He kind of had to make that choice every summer. Yeah. Do I go to camp? Do I play at JO's? So 2 summers ago, he chose to play at JO's, which was great. They went out to California. Their team ended up winning their division, which was super exciting. And then last year he was going to go back as a CIT, but of course camp was canceled.
Oh,
So
right. Okay.
technically
Yeah.
this is kind of he's been involved with this camp over the past 6 years, and even last year they had some activities that they needed to do
Yeah.
in preparation in case they did have camp. But
Yeah.
so he was a little later. Some people send their little 5 and 6 year olds off to camp. I didn't do that, but I
Yeah.
think he started when he was 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when I think of overnight camp, I think of the movie The Parent Trap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you watched that with your sister, but my sister and I watched that and loved it growing up. And I didn't go to overnight camp. In sixth grade, it seems like every Catholic school kid in the Bay Area goes to Camp Caritas, and I loved it. So I can't imagine going away I think it would be awesome for an extended period of time. And I'm just curious, is there one activity that Edward participates in at this camp that's really special? Like, is it canoeing? Is there something I don't know, that's iconic, about the camping experience?
So this particular camp, he loves, what actually he loves the most? He loves being disconnected from, for our kids, from really the internet and from his phone.
Yeah.
The last time he went, he did have a phone. He had just finished his 8th grade year. And I remember he didn't even take it with, if you bring it to camp, they will lock it up. He didn't even bring it with him. He just said, Mom, take
Right.
my phone. And
Yeah.
this is a kid who, again, loves computers, has dabbles in podcasting, and loves playing video games online. Certainly, that was his way he stayed connected with his classmates and friends during the pandemic. I always say he should buy stock in Nintendo. He knows everything about Pokemon and Mario Kart, and he just loves TikTok, YouTube, all those things that we probably wish our kids didn't. But he also loves being there and not having access to any of that. In fact, he said that in the car when we were, running errands before he left. He said, Mom, you know how much I love, being online, but I can't wait to get on the mountain and just get away
Wow.
from all of it. So that actually is the best part of it. They go in there, they can be kids. They do, it's a very traditional camp in that sense. I would say the thing he loves the most is what they call EPs, evening programs. Every night they transform some part of the camp into a massive evening program. And sometimes it's a Mardi Gras theme, or it's a country fair theme, or a talent show, or some type of Who's Got Talent, or What's Your Talent, or crazy game show. And every Tuesday night's a hoedown. And the costumes that these kids and counselors wear, he loves all of that. He really gets into all of that fun. He loves it. So I would say the evening programs. In fact, he asked me to just send him, he was Willy Wonka in a play a few years back. He just asked me to send him his Willy Wonka costume and a hat, and
Oh, yeah.
and actually another book. He has blown through he's read about 10 books since he's been down there.
Wow.
He is a
Yeah.
reader. And, again, that's not what he thinks to do when he's at home and he's got an hour of free time. Usually he, logs online. So it's been great for him to reconnect with his love of reading too. So there's really nothing about this camp. Everything that Edward loves, this camp celebrates. So it's fun. Outside, dressing up, having fun, acting, competition, all of that.
Fabulous. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
It is. It's exciting. It's just fun to see him love something that much.
Oh, I'm sure. Delightful as a parent to see that. And everything you've said about it is so interesting to me, about the disconnection piece, because, for example, on Kairos retreats, we have students disconnect and they all resist initially, and then it becomes the best thing, right? And I do kind of wonder, we've talked about this before, like, what are we taking in? Does it nourish us, like food wise, but also like in terms of media and whatnot. And I think we just are constantly taking so much in, it might, exhaust us. So it's really liberating for his brain to have this experience where he can be present and just, be 17, whatever that means in this country right now.
Right.
But I also like the responsibility piece, because I've noticed like some of my students will talk about being a coach, for CYO basketball or different experiences, or a camp counselor, whatever their experience is, where they then become, a leader, and they will be infrequently saying things that we've said, yeah, I'm not hearing please and thank you. And it's frustrating that people don't listen, or that they don't include others. So I think it's, wonderful to put young people in those positions where they can learn for themselves and have the value of that experience. So really cool.
It's great. And the mountains of North Carolina are not too dissimilar, probably not as big as, the Lake Tahoe area with, the mountain and the lake out there. We went to Lake Tahoe a few times growing up, but I know it's a special place for you too. But just such a great outdoor spot.
Yeah. Nice transition, Haley. Yes. I was in Lake Tahoe Thursday through Sunday. Lake Tahoe is, on the border of California and Nevada. So it brings together two states. For many people, it's a winter destination just because there's so much excellent skiing, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing. I've said it many times, if I could come back and play one sport, I wish I was an excellent skier, although financially I'm really glad I'm not, because I already play an expensive sport. But for my family, it's always been a summer destination. So it's in the Sierras, 8,000 feet, I think is what it is. It's a freshwater lake. It's a mountain lake. It's just so beautiful. And it's, it's in The Godfather, right? I mean, it's the scene where Fredo goes to die. It is, known for many different reasons, some good, some bad. For example, I heard one time somebody say, thank God we have our national park system, because if we didn't, Yosemite would be Lake Tahoe. And I thought, well, that's not so bad. But I really have an appreciation for both. Lake Tahoe's beauty is not uncompromised, but I am absolutely in support of our national park system, right? Yosemite has its own experience, but Tahoe just, for so many people, offers so many different things to do activity-wise. So my family went there every summer for a week. We don't own a place. A lot of people in the Bay Area might have family places. We're talking places for skiing, cabins, whatever that is. So many Americans, and now it seems more of a thing of privilege to have a second place, but it wasn't uncommon is what I'm trying to say, because these places aren't that fancy. But we went every summer, and we would go on the lake, miniature golf, you name it. There's some historic stuff that we would do. Just loved going there.
Did you ever go river rafting down the Truckee River?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we've done that too. I loved it. And all I remember is how cold the water is. And as a young child, having my mom explain to me that that's because it's snow runoff.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
In some years, there's more of it than other years. You got that. That's so funny. We have a family photo, and we're all smiling, but it's like the fakest smile because we were so scared.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's fun.
Now, my parents like to gamble. So my grandmother was pretty good at blackjack. My dad really loves to play craps. My mom is, open to slots and whatnot. So for me, honestly, that is a significant draw. I'm not a big gambler. I mean, I was in Las Vegas and I played craps, but I don't have an addictive personality, and I'm fortunate because I can honestly see how it can be thrilling. So it's just funny because we were, I was there with 7 friends. There were 7 of us, and we go to this tournament every year. It's the American Century Classic, and American Century sponsors this tournament, and it's a lot of celebrities. So when I say celebrities, you do have actors, comedians, a few musicians, but the majority are professional athletes, and a lot of coaches as well. So for a sports fan like me, it's just it's a heyday. You're just kind of feasting on these personalities, many from the past, but many current ones. So for example, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, he was there. So there were a ton of Chiefs fans. He was paired with his teammate, who I'm a big fan of, Travis Kelce, tight end. And then the third person in their group was Justin Timberlake. So there's a high profile musician. And I don't know, Justin Timberlake did something right in this life, the way he can dance. He's a very good golfer. He just has a fun personality. And we were joking because Mahomes and Timberlake kind of had this bromance going on. And I just started thinking about like the bromance, like the term cracks me up, but like were there bromances, in scripture? I mean, were some of the the apostles were there bromances among them? This is like mutual admiration for the other person. So that was fun just to see. Steph Curry was there with his brother and his dad. They were in a group, and then Steph was moved to a different group because he's such a good golfer with Tony Romo, who's a great analyst and also a really good golfer. And then Annika Sorenstam, who was one of 3 women that played in the tournament. Annika is one of the winningest female golfers of all time. I think she has a place up in Lake Tahoe. She's played in it many times. So she certainly held her own. She did not play from the forward tees, although she could have. And so it was just fun. It was fun to be out on the lake, to see, again, these folks. And then, my group every year, it changes a little bit, but I actually know them through my parish, through the young adult group. We met many years ago, and we've gone, like I said, the last 8 years. So we have gambling at night, golf by day. We were out in the pool, and it was really funny because at our hotel, Steve Young was staying there, and we knew that because he stays there every year. And he walks in, and it was like out of a movie where it like, in like Hollywood, where some woman or whoever it is walks in and everybody turns their head. And we were just in the pool, and literally everybody turned just to watch him walk in. He's in his 50s. He's still fit, but it wasn't like, people just couldn't handle it. And then somebody finally like broke the ice, and they're like, Steve-O, and like the guy just wanted to get in the spa. That's all. But it's fun to be part of kind of all of that.
Yeah, again, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's a great tradition. Brian Kelly, the coach of Notre Dame football, was there. That was a treat. His wife, Packy Kelly, was there. Got to chat with her, and people are just there to, they're having fun. It's just a nice, summer weekend, and what people yell out is kind of funny, different things that they'll say, and who you represent, if it's the Chiefs or, a lot of Saints fans. For example, Sean Payton was there, the head coach. Drew Brees was supposed to play. He didn't. Aaron Rodgers, and they throw the football on the 17th hole out into the water. And, there's all of that. So it's a good summer thing. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, another great summer tradition actually is it takes place usually right around the 4th of July. It seems a little later this year, but everything's kind of shifted. We're also playing the NBA Finals a lot later this year, is Wimbledon. And, that is definitely one thing I grew up watching. We always called it breakfast at Wimbledon, as I'm sure you did too, because we'd have to get up at the crack of dawn to watch the finals. But that was, we followed that this weekend. Ash Barty, the number 1 player in the world for the women. She won women's singles. That's, that's a name I know because she, in 2018, won the U.S. Open in women's doubles with my cousin, Coco Vandeweghe. So it's, cool. I kind of always follow along with her career as well.
Sure.
But it's nice to see sports, and certainly these very traditional, long-standing sports return.
Yeah, and I think, for people who watch, the crowd was so appreciative of it, and they were so loud, and it was really exciting. And yeah, I don't know that I'll ever get to Wimbledon, the expense of it, and then just how difficult. I don't totally understand the ticket system with like the lottery, and, you could sit outside, and I think that'd be cool. But wow, what a tournament, to have, Kate Middleton, for, the Duchess, that, with Will on Saturday. And then you have the female tennis royalty of Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova in the stands. And yeah, it was super exciting. Ash Barty, as she's also a +2 handy, she's an outstanding golfer, +2 handicap, and then took a break for 2 years to play cricket. So there's certainly the argument for the multi-sport athlete, or, at that level, she's just such a great athlete, right? I mean, that's part of. And then I felt like it was old meets new with Djokovic, tying the record 3 in a row, only 3 other men, and also 20 titles unbelievable. But I think Matteo Bertini was really exciting. What an incredible serve. 137 miles an hour is beyond my comprehension.
Right.
So yeah, there seems like tennis is at this, crossroads now where, those who have dominated, be it, Federer being 40 and Nadal, I don't want to write him off, but he wasn't even in the tournament. And Djokovic is only 34. He's certainly, but it's interesting because some of the other names in the semis were newer for people. And, with the Williams sisters also same as Federer, 39-40.
Right.
It's going to be interesting. So the game's in good shape, I think.
So I've only been to Wimbledon once, which I shouldn't say only. That's like only winning the U.S. Open in tennis once. But my sister and I were in London in 1996. She had just graduated from high school, and I was out of college at that point. And there had been a lot of rain delays. And so the finals used to always be on Sunday, but they had to push all of the matches. This was before the new stadium they have now. They had to push all the matches, into the following week. And so at that point, they have no ticket situation. And again, this is 1996. So tickets were very different back then anyway. So if you could get yourself there, it was free. I mean, they basically just opened the gates and let anybody in, and you could wander wherever you wanted to go. So we wandered over to center court and watched the women's double finals. And I remember those disc cameras that, the disc, it was like DISC.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a long time ago. So that was the camera that I was using. And I remember taking pictures of the winners. And there was a young girl who was probably about 16 at that point. I'll have to look it up. But Martina Hingis won her first Wimbledon title, women's doubles, 1996. And of course, I wasn't a big tennis fan. I didn't follow a lot. Obviously, I would have known if it was Chris Evert-Lloyd or Martina Navratilova or any of those big names, at that time. So I had no idea who Martina Hingis was. I'm sure a lot of people in the world didn't know who she was. And of course, she has had a very, very long tennis career and actually was a very good doubles player for a very long time. So it's fun. It's kind of neat to be there and to just see that, iconic sport and event and facility.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And I was thinking one thought I had, watching it was the standard of wearing white. So, I play at golf at a private club where we do have, dress code, and it's not without, challenges and complaints. And that's like any institution, the school I work at as well, but requiring people to wear all white. And I think there's some real beauty in it because it almost seems like you focus more on the athleticism of the tennis player and their style of play rather than what they're wearing. That was just one observation. I don't know that people would agree with it, but that was kind of what I thought about. Now, there are walking billboards. They have, if it's not Rolex, it's, Fila, or they still have advertising. They can still have their own style. Many of the players have tattoos or piercings, whatnot, but I don't know. It's a different look, and it's just so striking against the green of the grass. And then, the All England, or I think they've had some name changes, but All England lawn tennis croquet, the purple and green. And it's just like, that's the color of Wimbledon, and it's its own brand, if you will. But I think there's some beauty and simplicity is what I'm trying to say. I love color, but I also like the just kind of, this is what we're going to require of people. So I don't know, it was one thought that kind of crossed my mind this year.
Yeah. And I'm sure that has and probably will, cause controversy and complaints with some, but there is something, England does that very well. They hold to their rules, and even if they seem archaic to some,
right.
They are who they are, and there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, good point.
So as we move to our spiritual stew, mine comes from a reading that I came across as I was preparing for Vespers. So, Ann and I have talked about before our online parish, our virtual parish that we attended during the pandemic, during quarantine, which was I know really meaningful for us. And, those masses have ended now that most of our churches have opened back up again, and we want to support and encourage people going back into their churches. So we shifted from our online mass to an evening vespers service because we did create this very nice, meaningful online community that I think some of us really wanted to kind of hang on to and continue. So we have evening vespers on Sunday night, and we take turns who leads it. Not everybody can make it every week. Some people do, and many people don't, but it's always kind of fun to see who shows up. So I'm actually going to read it. It's a very short reading. It's only really one sentence, although sentences in the Bible can go on for 2 pages. But it comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, a gentle Father and the God of all consolation, who comforts us in all our sorrows, so we can offer others in their sorrows the consolation that we have received from God ourselves. And this really spoke to me, and it was part of the reflection that I shared at Vespers, because in so many ways, this is how I try to live my life. We've talked about it a lot. Most people know I had this really tragic experience. A horrible accident, a terrible injury, a long recovery, a long physical recovery, and then an emotional recovery that I'm continuing to learn and live with and deal with. I can't even say that my emotional recovery is over. It's this journey. And one of the ways that has helped me make sense of it is being able to share that journey with others, and to be able to connect with people who are going through a really tough time, to connect with people who are hurting, to connect with people who are dealing with sorrow, and to be able to offer these 2 words that I share often that are so powerful when spoken truthfully, and that is, I understand. And to be able to say those words truthfully is very powerful. And when we are struggling, and when we are sad, and when we are going through any sort of tough time or challenge or tragic event even, it's very unsettling and frustrating when someone comes up to you and says, oh, I understand what you're going through, when they don't. And it's not that we're judging whether they understand or not. It's just nearly impossible to understand what someone is living with if you haven't lived through those emotions yourself. And I certainly wouldn't have the knowledge and the feeling and the emotions and the empathy that I have had I not experienced my own tragedy. So being able to share with someone, that you really do understand these emotions and how hard it is, it is a gift. And that is exactly what this passage said to me is, talking about, a gentle Father and the God of all consolation, who comforts us in all our sorrows. I was certainly comforted in my own sorrows, so that we can offer others in their sorrows the consolation we have received. And, again, this just really spoke to me because it's what I try to do on a daily basis. Take what I've experienced, the sorrows and the joy, and the faith, and to share the gift and the grace that I received with others. And, again, to be that grace for others. So I loved this. I think about it all the time. I've reflected on it, for the past several days. And, I hope it's something that our listeners can take with them. We all experience different events in our lives. We all experience different emotions. I often think about, the death of a parent. I haven't lived through that yet. I know that I don't understand, the emotions that go along with losing a parent. I'm very aware of that when I'm communicating or offering sympathy to a friend of mine who has lost a parent, because I don't know those emotions. It's again, just something that spoke to me, and I hope will stay with our listeners as well.
Well, yeah, you've certainly given us a passage of scripture for our takeaway, Haley. Yeah, it's beautiful. And, St. Paul's words remind me, really, he's identified, people heard about the theological virtue, So the theological virtues, faith, hope, and love or charity, are the idea that we can love because God has loved us first. Mm-hmm. And so like, that's what this is saying, like, because God is love, like God is the source of love, and to have that relationship then enables us to, right, do that for other people. So it's funny, I try to explain, it's hard to explain it, but with like a young person, I will, teenager, I'll say, there's somebody in class, like that, you have some misgivings against them, maybe you've judged them or whatever they may have, and then you find out they think you're really cool or you're funny. And I said, what happens towards your attitude towards that person? And they're all like, oh yeah, like suddenly, oh, they're really interesting, or yeah, they're fun too. Like, we change. And so we need that source. We need that because our fallen nature, we can go many different directions. So by being in relationship with God, yes, we can love others. And it's really because, like you said, life has so many different things, right? Where you would never expect to need to be able to offer those words I can understand, but you can offer those to many people. And I know you don't use those words just generically or loosely. It's really meaningful. I mean, that was my favorite part of one of my favorite parts of your speech at Notre Dame's commencement, knowing what it was like to lose a classmate, right. When you were able to say that to the graduating class. So yes. Hopefully those were words of comfort, just like in this passage of scripture. It's awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So my piece for the spiritual stew, maybe we can just start with a question, because the passage is from Father Andrew Greeley, and it's about the import of religious symbols. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious, Haley, is there a religious symbol that has special meaning for you?
So, there is, and I love that you asked this because I'm not sure I knew it until you posed this question and I started thinking about it. So there's actually two, and one is the Maltese cross. My grandfather was a Knight of Malta, and my grandmother, who was not Catholic, had a medallion that she wore of the Maltese cross every day of her life. And she passed away in 1986, so many years ago. And then when I gave the commencement address at Notre Dame, it's interesting, it's funny that you brought that up. My mother gave my grandmother's medallion to me, and I wear it all the time. And I didn't even know I hadn't remembered that she wore that until I saw it, and I knew right away what it was. It wasn't something I had seen probably in over 20 years since she had passed away, probably 25 years at that point. But as soon as I saw it, I knew it was my grandmother's, and I knew what it was, and I knew that it had belonged to her and was meaningful to my grandfather. So I love that medallion. I love the Maltese cross for that reason, really. But one of the first signs and symbols that was really meaningful for me was when I first visited Rome, which I had wanted to go to for a very long time. I had taken a Roman history class my senior year at Notre Dame, and it took me about 20 years to finally get to Rome. And we visited the Vatican, of course, because that's where we go. And there is a symbol that Pope John Paul II had made for his 1986 Interfaith Summit in Assisi. And it's the Alpha, the Omega, and the sign of peace, or the symbol for peace. And I loved it. It was beautiful. It's not a Catholic symbol. Yeah, it was really a symbol that was related to this peaceful summit of world religious leaders. And so I have a necklace. I have another medallion of sorts that I wear very often. I didn't take it off. I put it on in Rome, and I didn't take it off until the chain broke. So I need a new chain. But I really, to me, I love the medallion with the Maltese cross because it was my grandmother and my grandfather's, and that has that meaning. But I love the symbol of this interfaith conference that was led by Pope John Paul, because that's really how I view the importance of my faith. I am Catholic. Certainly, Pope John Paul II was Catholic, but but he so valued every religion and what religion meant in other people's lives, and I like to strive and think that I am that way too. Just the importance of faith. So I would say those two. Very long answer there, and I didn't give you just one.
Great answers. I'm super curious what prompted your mom to give you the cross at that moment.
Yeah, that's a great question. My guess is she was always going to give it to me. It was my grandfather's.
Yeah.
It's a very Catholic symbol.
Yeah, okay.
As a Knight of Malta, I'm the only Catholic in the family, so
Okay.
I'm
I
assuming
was wondering
that
about that.
and I was also my mom has an older sister, but she had three boys. My mom was the youngest, but I was my grandmother's first daughter's daughter.
Okay.
So some of the jewelry's coming my way.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah.
super fancy piece of jewelry, but it's been around for many decades. And my guess is she was waiting for an important, special time. So she gave me my grandmother's pearls when I got married, and my grandmother's Maltese cross when I
Yeah.
gave the commencement address. So, yeah, that's a good question. I might have to ask her about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's it'd be a good conversation. It's funny because I love jewelry. I've as a kid, I really liked it. But one of the things I do appreciate about jewelry is something like that. It connects us to, our families and to our history or our past. And it is funny because here I am talking about Wimbledon, and I did really pay attention to some of the jewelry. So I might not have been looking at their clothing, but I did love this one tennis player's earrings. I was like, wow, those are awesome. But I will post the Maltese cross in the show notes. I will post the Alpha Omega and this peace sign. And I just want to touch on this because I read it and I thought it was so interesting. I appreciate all that you said about John Paul II. And there are many people that love the Holy Father, Saint John Paul. Some call him the Great. And they think he's more conservative than our current Holy Father. So sometimes people put one against the other, and I'm not, that's not me. They are both called to lead the church. And right now in this country, there's a lot of questions about giving communion to politicians and how we should handle that. And there's an excellent editorial in America Magazine about why is this even a question? And it references John Paul II. He gave the Eucharist to Tony Blair before he was Catholic, and he knew that he wasn't Catholic. And so it was saying that that's happened, and on one side, and then this Holy Father has also given communion to people where people have been upset. So I just thought it was an interesting historical reflection that the question is, maybe it was worth reframing the question. So I'll post that editorial as well. So his spirit of inclusivity was, some people might find that highly problematic that he gave Tony Blair. Tony Blair did convert later, but he was not a Catholic at the time. He was an Anglican. And John Paul II knew that.
Interesting. I'll enjoy reading that.
Yeah. But I guess why I asked you the question, and is because just Father Andrew Greeley, he's a prolific writer. I've referenced him before. He just said something I thought was really interesting about religious symbols, and I had never kind of thought about it before. I don't teach high school English, but I know sometimes high school English teachers, students get frustrated because they just think, we teachers pay too much attention to symbols, and maybe that's never what the author intended. But according to Greeley, religious symbols are options. They impose themselves on no one. If you don't believe the insight contained in the symbol, you don't have to. If you think the insight is silly, you can say so. But don't say symbols aren't irrelevant. Don't say symbols are irrelevant to human life in general. The potential for relevance is there to anyone who wishes to use it. That the potential has been used, but rarely in the past, is not the fault of the symbol, but of the potential users. So in the religious life, there are thousands of symbols, and they are meaningful. And you know what? It's kind of like Greeley's pointing out to it. The symbol has the power whether you want it or not, and it's up to you to speak to that. So, for me to see that Maltese cross, it's not just, a cross of the Knights of Malta. It's obviously something much deeper and richer. And that's, I think, really what human life is all about, is always going deeper and, connecting us to our loved ones and ultimately to God. So that you and your grandfather share a faith tradition is really, I think, quite meaningful. So it's fun to think about, and I just thought his words were really interesting. They were in context of Genesis, the myth, the Genesis legend, because it has so many symbols. And he was trying to make the point that the whole point of the Genesis story is that chaos doesn't reign. Disorder is not the story. In fact, God made order out of disorder. God made the extraordinary out of the ordinary. And so a symbol system has always allowed us to communicate that. So I thought it was kind of interesting for us to consider.
That's fascinating. And, so many great takeaways this week and so much that we've talked about. I'll have to think about it. I will definitely read the article that you're going to post about the popes and giving out communion to Tony Blair at the time. But any takeaways that you have?
I do. So I've seen him. His name is Father Mike Schmitz. He is a podcaster. He's a Catholic priest out of the Midwest. Haley, he's like the most downloaded podcast right now, from what I understand. And his podcast is the Bible in a Year. Okay. So I've heard a number of people. He's a handsome man. So he might get some attention because he's draws people's attention based on his good looks. But he's really popular and really offering something that is speaking to people. And so Bible in a Year. It's like a 20-minute podcast. It's 2 or 3 scripture readings. He offers a brief reflection and then a guided prayer to help you hear God's voice in the Word. And it's a remarkable tool for evangelization. Maybe the title catches people, because that's a goal that some people have, to read the Bible or whatnot. I haven't participated in it, but it's definitely my takeaway is to follow up on this, because I've seen him and I keep hearing his name. And when my friend from church told me about this, I thought, okay, I gotta figure it. I gotta find out. So
that sounds fascinating. I will have to check that out too, and I will be sure to ask you about that last week. Hopefully one of us will actually listen to some of it.
Yes, right. So you got it.
Yeah. So lots to do this week. Lots of sports. Of course, the NBA finals continue this week. Currently the Suns are up 2-1. I'm hoping that they go up a little further. We can talk about that next week. With any luck, maybe they'll be over by then, but I don't know. The Bucks are looking strong. Pat Connaughton, of course, of Notre Dame, is playing really well. I'm definitely not rooting against him, but it's kind of a lull in the sports world when you get to this time of year. So I'm excited to have the NBA finals play along. But
All-Star game tomorrow night.
Yes, and Trey Mancini with the home run derby. From Notre Dame, so that's kind of fun too. It is nice to have some of these sports going on in the middle of July when we normally don't have them. I don't know, this is a little tidbit of trivia. Obviously, COVID is a different year, and even this year, still dealing with COVID as a year. But the day before and after the NBA All-Star Game are the only 2 days of the year that there are no professional sports being played. Now, maybe I should say in the United States. I don't know about soccer. Certainly, we just
because Copa America, is playing on now. Now, sports is just such an incredibly huge entertainment industry, right? Yeah. I mean, you could probably be watching cornhole championships. So no offense to our cornholers, or
So maybe we'll say in the past,
correct,
there weren't any traditional sports. But anyway, fun little tidbit of trivia. But and have a great week, and thank you to all of our listeners. Chime in, let us know what you think, let us know what you liked, didn't like, and as always, we will be praying for you, and we will be back next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, Haley. Thanks to our listeners.
Thank you.